What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Raudeza Reviews. I'm Raudeza. Now, I hope that you had a great, happy Thanksgiving. You were able to spend it with friends and family. I know that I'm certainly thankful for so many things in my life, and I just want to keep the reviews going. So, if you've been following the channel for a very long time, and I really hope that you have, you know that Wolverine gets a lot of love here. Now, we have done a lot in terms of merchandise for Wolverine, whether it's Hot Toys, Sideshow Collectibles, Diamond Gallery, PCS, you name it, we've done it on the show. But it looks like another manufacturer is getting into the game, and I'm actually pretty excited about this. Now, of course, the 1/6 scale MCU Wolverine figures, aka Hugh Jackman, has always gotten love on this channel, but there is something to be said about the comic book variants, and the more variants that you have from the comics, the better they are, and I think the sweet spot for most of the audience out there is the 1/6 scale market. So Hano is a relatively newcomer to this game in terms of the 1/6 scale market. I know I was very excited when I saw the announcements for this, and at least the prototypes for the actual Wolverine figure. And now that I've got it in studio, I'm even more excited, just because I absolutely love this variant of Wolverine, and it's just really freaking cool. So this is one more little trivial thing to be thankful for this year. Today we're going to be reviewing Hano Studios' version of the Wolverine, the 1/6 scale figure. Let's take a closer look. Oh yeah, this is one slick ass looking figure. Now let me tell you something, it is definitely one of the most flamboyant costumes of the Wolverine, and it is of course more traditional with the actual comic, but man do I love this. The head sculpt on this is absolutely magnificent, exactly what you see in the pages of the comics, which is really cool. I love the snarl and the countenance in the face, the whited out eyes, just the cringe in the brow, and those long ass kind of like extending masks that really kind of personifies the Wolverine. Head sculpt is really fantastic, and you get a couple of display options here as well. Now, I really love the midsection and upper torso of this piece. It is super badass. Now, I want to start with the costume itself. Now, the color palette is magnificent. The metallic blue offset against the yellow and the black look really fantastic. And it's very textured, by the way, so it didn't just go like cheapy cheeser. But I think one of the most impressive things about this, being a full rubber body suit, especially in the arms, and this is where the attention to detail really is amazing. One thing too, in terms of the texture, when I touch this, I mean, just take a look at that and how exquisite it is. It actually feels like human skin. And the details in the kind of stubble in his arms and the veins just look absolutely magnificent here. They did a really good job on this, and it really simulates a human bicep. And of course we have that wonderful focal point with the red X logo. I mean, it just looks really well done. Overall, the midsection is fantastic. Now, the Wolverine is iconic for his internal weapons, which is obviously his adamantium claws. However, this is where we have a few problems with this figure. Now, the textures on where they extend are actually pretty cool. The very big problem with the claws is that they're plasticky as hell. I've had dinner forks that have had more reinforcement than these claws, and that is such a horrible design choice. They really should have been made out of metal. Everything else is done so exquisitely that to have the claws this cheap looking is just unforgivable. Now, the lower section of this figure fares a lot better than the claws, and you can really tell in the detail in terms of the texture of his costume. Again, there are ridges there that really make it look exquisite, and of course there's the muscular structure underneath. I mean, look at that. The muscles underneath the skin of this figure is just absolutely amazing. This is one of the things I really love about this figure, and not to mention that it's dense as hell. Now, unfortunately, the ball joint system that they used here is very rudimentary, so I actually, in trying to pose it, I got one of the pegs, so it's not as sturdy, and you do need to lean it up against the stand, regrettably, but it is what it is. Now, I wouldn't say that you have to run out and mirror this figure, though there is a lot of detail on the reverse side. And one of the things I like about this costume is that you actually see the muscular structure on the back. One thing I did want to complain about the actual shoulder plates is that they've got this really odd kind of like plug-in system which has them popping out a lot. Not too much in terms of fan service here, but he is the Wolverine, and you get a greater appreciation of how he actually attaches to the base. Now, it does have a kind of like nut grabber that I'm not going to use. I'm just going to lean it up against the base. And speaking of the base, this is one of the things that I think they really did a great job on. A little unusual and unorthodox, but very exciting nevertheless. Now, it is just a black slab with a border, or on the lip of the base it's yellow, and it has this wonderful logo of the Wolverine. Very simple, very sleek, and very minimalistic, but it does say a lot about the presentation. And I think that's what they were going for here, almost like a movie poster motif, because when you see what the stand comes with, I think it's very special and very unique for these figures. Now this is awesome. Now the only complaint that I have about it, because the actual lithograph is really awesome and it has a backstop so that you can slide it in, is that unfortunately to get to the lithograph, you do actually have to tear up the packaging, which is very similar to something that you would see in like a NECA figure, which is regrettable. Unfortunately, they didn't have this like on its own or in a sleeve or something that comes in addition to. You have to actually cut this out, which for most collectors is kind of like a sin. So I don't know why they went with this. And again, this figure does have some really great stuff going for it, but just some questionable design choices in over the overall packaging and some of the things that they went with in terms of the materials. Now, this is a look of what this looks like, full display with the actual stand, the Wolverine himself, and of course the backdrop. And I have to say, this is very impressive. It is like a centerpiece for your collection. I could just see this on my shelves somewhere, and it just looks absolutely amazing on its own. And I think that's the point of this, is going to a more presentative package, which I really appreciate. Now, some of the accessories include 2 additional faceplates for the actual mask. Now, unfortunately, they're not magnetic, so they're actually a plug and play, which could be a bit of a pain in the ass. You get a closed mouth for a more stoic and serious face, and then one that's slightly grinning, and then of course the full rage mode that I have it displayed with now. Really cool accessories. Again, I would have liked to have seen these magnetic, so they're a little bit easier to swap in and out. It took me about 30 minutes to pull out the other one because it was just stuck on there, so just keep that in mind. Now for me, these are some really weird accessories. Now I know what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to give a swapping or swishing motion on the actual blades themselves, and you actually just put them on the blades. But to me, it's just like plastic overkill. Now these are plastic, or a lighter plastic. They're not even hard plastic. And although I have to admit they look cool when you put them on the figure, it's just like adding plastic on plastic. I'm not a really big fan of this, but it is another accessory that you can put on the already plastic adamantium claws. Again, I just wish that they were metal. It would have been a lot easier, I think better in terms of the overall figure. And rounding out the last bit of accessories are 2 additional hands for various poses, or 2 poses I should say. And these are the ones that are the fists that are closed. Very detailed, I guess I can say, is the best thing about it. But again, it just reminds me of what could have been in terms of the claws before you see them come out. Now I know I keep bitching about the adamantium claws, but I think that you can do a kit bash as long as you can find the relatively same looking like knuckles, whatever, and you can get some that are actual metal, and that's a kind of a simple problem to solve. Now, there are a few questionable design choices here, and there are a lot of good things about this figure, and then it takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Nevertheless though, I am going to categorize this as a holy grail piece because it's pretty freaking awesome and pretty much sold out in a lot of places. And if you are a fan of the Wolverine and this variant of the Wolverine, you definitely got to have this one in your collection just because of the overall presentation. It is really badass. Now the other exciting thing is that Hano is making more 1/6 scale figures, and I'm very excited. This is a nice test run for what I hope will be several improvements to these figures, but nevertheless, pretty impressive. Alright everybody, so that's my official review of Hano Studios' version of the Wolverine, the 1/6 scale figure. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next Raudeza Reviews.